Thank you very much.
We'll be happier with the final product.
Yeah, that there will be a final product. Okay, again, welcome everybody. And just a reminder to everybody that we meet every second Wednesday of the month from 6:30 till 8:30 or 9:30 Mountain Time. Okay. This is our third Zoom presentation that we've had due to the restrictions that have been in place. But next month, August 12th, we are actually going to be meeting at the Inglewood Community Center at the Dave Marshall Room, where we normally have been conducting our meetings. And hopefully everything will go all right. We're supposed to actually have the big auditorium for us, but something got double booked. So we're back to our old room, but we'll be able to clear out the very back part of the room, create a little more space, and we should be able to abide by any of the distance protocols that are in place. Alrighty. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. We're going to, I'll just say anybody that isn't on our newsletter, please type your name into the message board, and I will get it, and I'll write it down, and I'll ensure that that you'll be on our subscription. So any communication we can email directly to you. We got more people waiting here. Yeah, so just put your name and your email down, and I'll make sure that that you're put on our list. Or we also have a Facebook page, Calgary Dowsers. You can go to that and request to get on our mailing list from there. On the Facebook, pardon me, on the Facebook page, we will be announcing our August presenter. And our guest speaker for August, her name is Karen Kilback. And Karen is an emerging leader, teacher, and educator in the field of meditation, and is currently the only trained Vedic meditation speaker in Western Canada. So feel free to join us as she shares Advaita Vedanta teachings and guides us in Vedic meditation. And just out of curiosity, if anybody is online here that wouldn't normally join us, anybody say from outside of the Calgary area, if you could just message me where you're from, that would help us out, because we're thinking of incorporating the Zoom meetings, even when we do meet again in person. We are thinking of incorporating the Zoom meetings as well. So, but we need to know if it's actually effective, like if it's reaching people who are outside of the Calgary area. So if you could just write where you're participating from, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And let's see. Oh yeah, the meeting will be recorded, so it'll be up on our website in its entirety after, well, as soon as we can get it up, so in a couple of days, all right? Okay, so I'd like to introduce today's special guest speaker, and her name is Holly Hawkins Marwood. Holly is an international Akashic Records instructor and reader, as well as a conscious channel for many multi-dimensional guides. She is co-founder of the Universal Sphere, as well as several soul activations brought through from these guides. She teaches and offers personal sessions internationally, locally in Northern California, and also online. Holly will be doing an introduction to Akashic Records If you have any questions, please type them in the message box, and Holly will try to answer as many as she can before guiding us into our own Akashic Records. We just ask that you keep your questions about the Akashic Records general in nature. If you would like any personal questions answered, we will direct you to Holly's website at the conclusion, where you can book a one-on-one consultation with Holly. Please keep your microphones on mute during the presentation. Again, I encourage you to type any questions or concerns into the message box. And without further ado, I would like to welcome our very special guest, Holly Hawkins Marwood. Welcome, Holly, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I will say, Doug, that Paul messaged that he can't hear anything. Can you hear now, Paul? Because is everyone else hearing? Are you all good? Okay. So maybe he needs to restart or check his own settings. Thank you for the feedback in the chat about that also. And Doug, whenever you're done with that, I won't need it right away, but if you could give me the opportunity to be able to screen share, which we'll do in a little while. Do you know how to do that?
I will try to figure it out as you speak.
Well, would you like, I'll just quickly explain it to you. I say this to everyone because my husband and I have been doing Zoom long before Zoom was a thing. So my husband's way better at it than me, but I do know enough to be dangerous. If you click on the participants and you'll get a whole list of names, and you find my name, and you can click on the little, either the three dots or the down arrow, and then you can give me permission to share the screen. And so that would be great. I don't need it right now.
Okay.
So, but thank you. Okay. So, all right. Thank you all for being here. And so as Doug said, I'm in Northern California. I live in a very small town called Grass Valley, northeast of Sacramento in the foothills of the Sierras, town of about 10,000 people. And we're about 30 degrees centigrade right now, so it's a little bit warm. It's just a pleasure to be here. I am so passionate basically about everything I do, but especially about the Akashic Records. And one of my favorite things to do is talk about them because I feel like it is such an important tool for this time when we're awakening, when we're discovering. Oh my gosh, Heather mentioned the Yuba River, my favorite place to go swimming, Heather, absolutely. We have several rivers here, it's just glorious. So the Akashic Records is a really relevant tool for those of us who are awakening, trying to get to the next level of our beingness, the next level of our experience, the next level of our possibility. But one of the things also, and I'll talk about this tonight, is there are a lot of misconceptions out there about the Akashic Records. And so I really like to bring us up to date. Let's bring us into this day, this age with our understanding about the Akashic Records. Because I would say there's a lot of sort of old mythology about it. And so it keeps people from going into this realm where they think they can't go or they don't have the right skill or talent for it. And I'll just say from the very beginning, you all do, period. Everyone. You have what it takes. You know why? You have a soul. That's the end of the story. Now let's dig into what that's about, because this is such an exciting place, I feel, to really learn and grow into our soul level truth. So as Doug mentioned, everyone, if you want to, completely by choice, you're going to have an opportunity to open your own records while we're in the call today. And I'm going to just say this now, so if anyone needs to go to their filing cabinet, you have a minute to do that. To open your Akashic Records, you're going to need your current legal name. Current legal name. It's only the name you were born with. If your name has never changed since the day you were born. So for some reason you're not quite clear on what that is, which does happen sometimes, you can scurry away and go look at like your tax records or things like that to look at what your current legal name is. We'll need it later, but then if you know now, I won't surprise you with any of that. So I'm going to just start off by, let's just start at ground level with this and say, what are the Akashic Records? So there are lots of ways that they're described, but the Akashic Record, the easiest way to say it, it's the record of your soul throughout its journey of its incarnation. So you, at one point in time, your soul was one with source energy, and we're headed back there now. Bit by bit, moment by moment, incarnation by incarnation, each one of our incarnations is helping us grow into the realization of who we are really at our core. So the Akashic Record is the record of your soul. Now, it commonly is felt that it's the record of our soul from the past only. And because that's typically how we think. If we go to to go look up birth records or death records or any kind of record, they already exist, so they've already happened. But what's interesting about the Akashic Record is it transcends time. So it is past, it is about present, and it's about future possibility. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. So it's not just past information that's accessible to us, it's also this really incredible place of the possibilities that are available to us in the future. So one of the things that we want to look at is this word Akasha, which is the root of Akashic. And Akasha is a Sanskrit word, and it means primordial substance or ether. So it's a very highly refined energetic field. And the way it's described is that anything that happens on or within this field gets remembered, gets stored there. All right. And that's how your Akashic Record was created. And it's created by, what's said is every thought, word, and deed. So right now, all of us are creating our Akashic Records, right? If you can go back into a past life where you saw yourself as a farmer in England in the 1500s, the reason that record is there is because you were just living your life being a farmer. You didn't think about anything like the Akashic Records. You just did your life. But the fact that we can access it means that this record is created just by us doing what we do in our everyday life. So there's some point in the future where maybe you're going to come back and look at on this evening, on this day, I met with these people on the computer and we had a conversation about the Akashic Record. So it's just created in a very natural way. Now, the Akashic Records are really available to everyone. Now, historically, that wasn't true. Historically, let's go back even just a couple hundred years, and we can look at this in our history where we have kings and we have religious leaders. And in that day and time, what we knew was that that leader, whomever they might have been, we put our full faith in them, right? To guide us, to know what was the right thing for us. And we followed what they said because we felt they knew more than we did. And sometimes we were required, right? To follow. That was just the status of who we were. They said it and we were required to follow. And back in those days, actually not that long ago, the realm of the Akasha really was accessed by the spiritually elite. They would have been the leaders, the spiritual leaders of the time, because their job was to have that connection. And then from that connection, they would then share and guide the masses. Well, in this time of awakening, that's shifting, isn't it? What we're doing now is waking up to what's within us, and we're learning to trust what's within us, the knowledge and the wisdom that's unique to us and our life, and we're finding that individual pathway for us. That's what we're awakening to. So when people say you can't access the Akashic records, historically that was true. Now, anyone, time has gone by, anyone who has a curiosity, has an interest, has a desire, everyone can if they want to. Now, not everyone wants to, right? Not everyone wants to. Not everyone's curious about it. And I mean, I know people in my life who wouldn't be curious about opening up the Akashic records at all. And that's fine. That's where they're at in their life, on their journey, in their series of incarnated experience. But some of us are ready to find out what's more, what makes me tick, how do I move past some of the things that I feel like are in my way. So before we look back, before we leave looking back historically, I want to bring up a few milestones. So there was a book that was written in the 1800s called The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. Has anyone heard of that book? Not of the people who have their videos on, I'm not seeing any. There are very few people who I know who have read this book, but it was a book that was written by Levi Dowling. And in terms of like more modern day books, even though I'm talking about the 1800s, that's one of the first references that we're aware of really solidly in print, where we see Akashic records, those words put together. And it's actually not in the words of Levi Dowling, but his daughter who wrote the introduction. And in the introduction, she references this thing called the Akashic records. And if we move forward in time a little bit, there are people who you're probably familiar with, people like Rudolf Steiner, Madame Blavatsky. So they're people who we're aware of who start referencing as we move more towards the out of the 1800s into the 1900s. It's starting to just pop in. Now, the awareness still there is that somebody has to be special to access the Akashic records. And one of the really most famous people we're aware of is Edgar Casey, right? Have you all heard of Edgar Casey? I mean, he has so much information pour through him. I mean, there's literally a whole library of the material he brought through. And he said it's all sourced from the Akashic record. Now, what was unique about Edgar Casey is he did talk about all the material he brought through, which, by the way, a lot of it is very relevant still today. It's not like old, outdated information. It still can be very applicable today. But what he did was he went into like a trance-like sleep. So he was called the sleeping prophet. So he was in this trance-like sleep, and he connected in, however he connected in, and then he started basically talking in this trance, and people were recording it and transcribing what was coming through. He himself was not connected to the information until afterwards. So in that moment, that trance-like sleep, he, as Edgar Casey, was not connected to the information. So, but again, you know, he put out so much information. Again, in certain segments of the population, there's this greater awareness of this thing called the Akashic record. And by the way, I should mention to you also that, you know, the Akashic record sounds sort of mystical, and you've got this Akasha Sanskrit word, but in most traditions, religious, cultural traditions, there is some awareness of a larger body of knowledge that is kept track of by source, by God. You know, it can be referred to as God's book of remembrance. It could be, wow, just totally blanked out on that. Oh, the book of knowledge. So there are many ways in many cultural traditions, there's this awareness where somehow there's a record being kept by somebody, a greater power than the human being. So it may not have been called the Akashic Records specifically, but it was still defining that. So what I want to do after Edgar Casey is jump forward into the 80s and 90s. And what we know was exploding in the world then was www, right? The World Wide Web is massively opening up. And even if way back in the day when we still had dial-up modems, which would feel impossibly slow for us today, it was pretty remarkable. And what it did was just totally expand our access to knowledge and information in a moment, didn't it? And what started also happening, curiously enough, at that same time was individual people started being given, downloading, if you will, prayers or methods to create a direct connection into the Akasha. So this, what was being broken down is the people who had special talents or gifts or special dispensation to access that incredible realm of the Akasha. It was breaking down. So guess what? Regular, ordinary, everyday human people like us. I know we're all special, right? But you know, we're not sitting there trying to be a religious leader for a whole country or a whole village, or you know, that might not be our role. Most of us are living householder lives. So what's really started breaking into the scene, so to speak, then were these prayers. So there's this huge tradition, and there are many, many of these prayers that are out there in the world that are access points for the Akashic Records. But that's not the only way people access the records. So how many of you have felt like you've just tripped into it before? Like, just like anyone have that experience where you're just like in a meditation and you know you're there? Or there are people who I've spoken with, they've been in a hypnotherapy session, or they've had a Reiki treatment, or they were literally daydreaming and they went somewhere else and they knew they were in their Akashic record. It is not uncommon to do that. Those kinds of experiences often happen sort of what I would call more spontaneously. They happen as a consequence of doing something else, but they weren't really trying to get there, but they ended up there. Because I've had many people in my classes say, oh wait, this is the Akashic Records, when they've read a prayer to get in there. Like, I've been here before, I just didn't know that's what it was. So what's great about any way that you learn to consciously and intentionally connect with the Akasha, like what's great about any one of the prayers is that it gives you a pathway when you want to consistently go in, right? It's not like, well, I meditated yesterday and I'm going to try and replicate everything I did yesterday in my meditation, so hopefully I'm going to get there today. When you have these these prayers give us like that form, that structure. I think of it as the structure of like a bridge, so that we know if we want to go in there and do some work and have some better understanding, we have a way that's repeatable, we can count on it when we really want to be there consciously and intentionally. So just so you know, I'm terrible at following my notes. I always end up speaking very spontaneously, so forgive me for looking down at my notes every now and then, because I usually have to find out where I am because I don't stick to them very well. Okay, so, all right. And I'm just going to open up the chat because I didn't have that open yet, and put it up on my screen just in case there's somebody who has a in the moment question. Okay. So what I want to talk about with the Akashic Record also is we learn a lot from working in our records. But one of the things that I like to demystify about it is that, you know, we're always really curious. And we also feel like if I just understood something, if I just had a little bit more information, Like it would all make sense. I would make sense. This thing I do would make sense, or this thing I don't do would make sense. And we just want that magical little nugget to kind of slip into us, and then we go, whoa, here I am, and all is well in my world. But what's really happening when we work in the Akasha, if we think about this, your record has been created and is being created and will be created to awaken you to your soul level truth. So when you go into your Akashic record, that's where you're vibrating. You just landed in that core level truth of who you are that transcends this particular incarnation. Okay, so one of the things I like to share is you cannot go into your Akashic records and come out and be the same. You can't, because here we are having our human experience. I've got my human reality. I've got my human perception, right? The way I'm navigating my 3D life. When I go into my Akashic records, what I really want is my soul level perspective. Like, what's going on here on that level? Like, why that family? Why do I feel stuck here? Why do I feel so drawn to that one thing, whatever it might be? And so when we're in our Akashic record, we're vibrating with that soul level truth. So when we go in there, we're always lining up bit by bit, more and more with that. And then we can bring that into our everyday life. So the reason I like to bring this up is because, again, we often think if I have this magical piece of information, I'm going to feel better. Like I'm going to understand why. And if I understand here cognitively why, then it's all going to make sense. But what we're really after is not an information piece. We're looking for an energetic shift. But wouldn't you agree with that? The energy shifting is what gives us a change, a profound change in how we experience life on all levels. So when people talk about going into the records and they just want to understand all their past lives, I love that question when people ask that. I mean, it's a great question, but part of the foundation is thinking that if I know all my last 5 lives or 10 lives, then it's going to help me make sense of who I am now. But it would be very unsatisfactory. So if I told you in your last 5 lives, you ready for this? I'm going to tell you what your last 5 lives were. This is going to be so transformational for you. You were a tinker, a tailor, a soldier, a sailor, and a spy. Are you feeling better? Did that help? I mean, I could tell you you were a slave, you were a princess, you were a queen, or you were a farmer. Is your life better right now? It's interesting, right? It might satisfy some curiosity. It might make you really understand why you love gardening. Like if you know that the last 30 lifetimes you've lived, you've worked with the land. But the reality is what we really want is the information that's going to shift us energetically, not just through knowledge, because here's the deal. If you need information, you don't need to know how to go in your records. Just go on Google, right? Google's got it all. But so what we know from that is that information itself does not create a change for us. The right information that we need in the moment that vibrates with our soul, now that's where we can change. But just a laundry list of who we were and what we did satisfies the curiosity, but it doesn't really help us create this profound change that's possible from working in the Akashic records. So it really is a dimension of soul level transformation, not just information. All right. It's one of the things, because as soon as we get that, we understand that we can be a lot more satisfied when we're working in our records, because I know a lot of people who say, well, I went my records and I understood this, but they were in a sense looking for the wrong things. We want to know, what are the right things to look for? Because here's an interesting thing. I'm going to pick on past lives because we're also curious about past lives. Okay, I'll talk to you more about, because there's way more that goes on that's so cool in the Akashic Records, way more than past lives. But here's the thing. You've all had a lot of past lives. How many? I don't know. I have no idea. I never even get that information in the records. Because, honestly, if you had 5,000 or if you had 500 again, does that change who you are right now? It's just interesting. It's curious, right? If you say, well, I've got 5,000 and my friend's got 500, I guess I'm a slow learner or something. But that's not helpful for us. So when we go into past lives and when we do any work in the records, what we do is we ask questions about here, now. What's going on here? What's going on now? And then I'll talk about them in a minute. Basically your spirit level, soul level team who's working with you in the records, guiding your soul, they're going to bring forward past lives if it matters. Because there are a lot of things in a lot of other lifetimes we've resolved. There's no energy, there's no juice for us with it anymore. So we don't need to know about that. What we need to know is the information that helps us live our best life in this moment in time. Because that's what we really want. We really want to prove to ourselves that all that we crave, all that we desire is actually possible for us. How many of you would agree with that? Doesn't that sound great? Like, I've got this thing inside of me. I feel like it's supposed to be here. I feel very clear on this. I don't know how to quite make it happen or manifest it, but you want to find out that actually, oh, you know what? I can work with that and not eternally feel blocked or stuck. Okay. One of the things I like to talk about with the Akashic Records is that when we're in there and it's our soul level truth, what you're really doing is talking to yourself. Right? Does that make sense? You're talking to that part of you that really knows who you are. The light of who you are has been the constant thread throughout all of your incarnated and non-incarnated experiences. And no matter what's happened to you in any time or place prior to this moment, there's nothing that's ever been so big, so hard, so destructive that it's put out your light, because you're still here. So we know we're very resilient. We know we've got what it takes to keep moving. And so this idea that when we're in there, we're talking to the higher aspects of ourselves that really holds our deepest, most personal wisdom and truth and understanding of who we are. Okay. Now, I mentioned this before, but I'm going to just elaborate on it a little bit, is that working in the Akashic Records is not just for spiritually special people. It's really, really important for you to, I hope you can take that in. You do not need to have any cultivated psychic gifts or clair gifts or feel like you're intuitive enough. First of all, if you already have a soul and if you have a desire, you have what it takes to really successfully work in this place. The way I look at it is, it's your birthright to be able to access your soul's information. Does that make sense to you? I mean, it makes so much sense to me, but I don't know if it makes, like, of course you should be able to talk to your soul. It's your soul, right? And so what we're waking up to right now is the possibility that we can do this. So when people talk, and sometimes they do, like, oh, it's hard to work in the records, it's a new skill. That's really what it is. So everyone has the birthright, everyone has the possibility to do it. If you have the interest to do it, you have everything it takes. And the next thing is that P word, practice. Just like when you got your two-wheel bike when you were a kid, just like when you were practicing multiplication tables, just like when you were a little toddler learning to work to eat food with a fork or a spoon. It just took practice, right? And some of us really hate that word, practice, but it's repetition. And this is how I look at it. When we look back in history, and we understand that, especially moving out of the patriarchal model, our history has been this patriarchal model, which, by the way, let's not be mean to the patriarchal model that we were all in, right? Let's cut us some slack. We were there. We loved it when we were there, right? It was ideal for us in that time and place. Now, some of us say, oh, heck no, I don't want to be in that model anymore. It's okay. We're outgrowing it. We're wanting to find a new way. But at that time, we loved it. And we were there. We were part of that. So when we think about it from this perspective, in those times and places, maybe we had a king we had to be absolutely obedient to. And if we weren't, we might have lost our life, right? Or we might have had spiritual leaders that nobody asked, do you believe this? Do you think this feels right to you? That wasn't an option. This is just what we all do. And now we're waking up to this time where we get to actually evaluate. I don't know, do I want to do that? So we're waking up to our inner knowledge and our inner wisdom. So for most of us, this is probably our very first lifetime, where we're incarnated as an everyday person, where we get to access this incredibly high level spiritual dimension. So we have to give ourselves time to learn, get comfortable with this. I mean, there were a lot of lifetimes where we were told absolutely, you cannot do this. You're not special enough. So we have to, the practice part, or the time where we're repeating it and going in, a lot of it is just us showing ourselves that we actually can do this. We can do this. So the practice part of it is what everyone has to do when they learn to read the Akashic Records. But you don't have to have a lot of skills or talents and abilities cultivated ahead of time. You just have to have a desire, and then a willingness to keep trying, and have faith that it's your soul. I get to talk to my soul. I may not have done it before, so I'm going to have to give myself a little time getting used to this, but I can do it. Okay, so now, and feel free, if you have any questions, to pop a question in the chat. If it's relevant to what I'm talking about, I'm happy to digress a little bit with what your question is related to what I'm talking about. All right. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on something I was talking about before. I told you, it's kind of fun to pick on past lives because it's so interesting, right? And that's what people are so curious about. But not only are past lives part of the Akashic Records, actually your ancestral history is as well. In your ancestral lineage, there were a lot of beliefs, there were a lot of experiences, and some of that knowledge and information and skills and fears and worries and concerns, so all the strengths and some of the insecurities, those get passed down the family lineage. How many of you can think right now of things that, oh, in my family, this is what we do, right? We all have those things that are, oh, because we're born in this particular area, or because our family had these particular circumstances, So that's part of our Akashic record also, is our ancestral patterns. And when I talk about these things, also, whether it's past life or ancestral pieces, we tend to habitually think about all the problems, right? All the things that have messed me up. If I didn't do that in this other lifetime, or if my ancestors didn't do that, I'd be fine. I'd have a different body, I'd be taller, I'd be smarter, I wouldn't be afraid of the world, or whatever it might be. So we tend to go looking at the problem areas. But the other aspect about the Akashic records that I just think it's one of my most favorite things to do is really work at it from a positive point of view. Because if you are wanting to positively create change in your life, there are kind of two main ways you can go at it. You can try to heal all the old wounds. Anyone feel like that's an infinite onion that you never quite get to the center of? I know I've got some of those, like, seriously, am I still working on that? But the other way is you can work in the Akashic records, not necessarily trying to resolve all the broken pieces, but you can also get advice and guidance in there to move forward in a positive way from where you are right now. So it's not only fixing the broken things, the Akashic Records is glorious to positively move yourself forward, which is going to be part of when I take you on your guided experience today. That's a little bit of what we're going to do is find a really yummy bit for yourself, because I love working in the records from a forward moving place. If I have to deal with stuff from my past, if I have to deal with another old pattern or old belief that I have to uproot and forklift out, I can do that. But I also love the positive implication of all of that. And the same is true of your ancestors. There may be things in your lineage that you think, oh my gosh, I wish I could get over this. Every woman in my family does this, or every firstborn in my family is like this, and there's so much pressure, whatever it might be. So there are ways that we can feel held back, but there are also ways that we can look to our lineage in really positive, supportive, forward-moving ways as well. So I love that about the Akashic Records, because again, I know there's only like 6 of you with your cameras on, but I'm just going to keep asking all of you anyway, because I can see you. And by the way, if somebody wants to raise their hand and you're on the computer, at the bottom where you see participants chat, there's something that says reactions. There's like a little happy face with a plus. If you click on that, you can do a thumbs up, and you could do the clapping hands. Yep, some of you are trying it out. And that just stays there for a few moments, and then it just fades away. Look at you guys, awesome. Getting to be Zoom experts already. So if I ask you to, hey, how many of you feel this way? You're welcome to do that if you want. No pressure. Or you can chime in on the chat if you like. But that little sort of reaction feature is a newer feature in Zoom, so that for those of you who just like to not be seen, it's a way for you to interact if you like. Let's see, where was I at? Ancestors. Oh, I like to also, so I'd like to, when I talk about ancestors, I like to give people some idea of what this means, because sometimes it's harder for us to see. So this is probably true for everybody. How many of you have relatives who you are familiar with who lived through the Great Depression? And how many of you in your home right now might have, we're going to laugh our way through this, okay, everyone? We're going to chuckle to ourselves. Maybe more paper clips or rubber bands, or saved wrapping paper, or maybe more food than you really need to have in your house just for a rainy day. Can anyone relate to that? Maybe you don't want to get rid of clothes just because, okay? Now, So thank you for those of you who chimed in on that. So this may or may not be from that, but I want you to see, at the point of inception, whether it's something in your past life, whether it's something in your ancestral pattern, the reality is, whenever it started, it was brilliant. It was ideal. It was the best thing that could have done. There was not a better solution at that time. Now, the reason you hate it is it might not be serving you so well in your time and space, but at the point of inception, it was fantastic. So let's go back and we think about people who might have lived through the Great Depression. That was a scary time. From one day to the next, people may have had no money. And people starved and they got sick. It was a scary time for a lot of people. And from a more societal perspective, banks failed. They kept people's money. I mean, this is like really, talk about first and second chakra security stuff, right? So can you imagine being that? You know what? If I were in that situation, I'd start saving wrapping paper and string and paper clips and anything, right? Because you just don't know. So it makes sense that that would happen. And because that really got viscerally imprinted, of course they shared that with their family. It makes sense. Now, it may still make sense for you now. And if it makes sense for you now and feels good for you, you're never going to ask about it in the records, right? Because it's not a problem for you. But the things that we want to move past are the things we generally look at in the records. And so if we say, I really don't, this pattern, whatever it might be, it doesn't feel like it's serving me. So we can work in the records to understand where and when it began. And guess what? When we understand where and when these things began, that resolves the energy that we're carrying today. It's that easy. Now, sometimes we still have some layers to work on, but when we're holding a pattern that, I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to give you a personal example from working in my own records, just so I'm not telling other people's stories, okay? I have no idea why I went in my records, and this is a long time ago, because I've been working in the records very actively, consistently since 2011. So I'm in my 10th year of always working in the records. Professionally and personally, I'm in my records all the time. So something came up and it was related, and I don't even know what question I asked, because for those of you who know me, if I could remember, I'd tell you. I'm very disclosing. I don't have anything to hide. We're all human. We've all been through similar kinds of experiences, right? But suddenly I saw myself in some old time, and I was an executioner. You know, the guys you see in movies, like really buff, the hood over their head with a big axe. And this was me in another lifetime. Again, I have no idea what brought me there. And I wasn't excited about seeing myself as a past life in that. And so my sensibility from this time and space, I would say, whoa, whoa, wait, I killed people for a living? But when we work in the records, what's so beautiful about it is we know we're always looking for the light. We're always looking for the light, because there's always the light of truth available everywhere in every single circumstance, regardless of the human condition. So I asked to understand how I was this executioner, and I understood that it was like a job that got passed down the family lineage. This wasn't a job I chose. It's just like my dad did it and my grandfather did it. Like, this is what we do in the family. There was no choice. It's just what you do. What I came to understand in that lifetime was that I didn't want to do it, but there literally wasn't a choice. No thought for it, actually. And if I did, I would probably be killed, and so would my family. So, I again, no thought that was even really a problem, even though I knew I didn't like it. But what I was shown there, and hopefully you can hang in there with this story for me because it was so beautiful. I might not cry when I tell this story, but I often cry when I tell this story because it was so revealing to me. Is that what they showed me is that he did his job really well. He kept his axe very finely sharpened so that to do the job he did it as beautifully as he could for the least trauma for the people that he had to do this for. They also showed me that he always went back and made a personal connection and talked with these people before he had to kill them as part of his job. So I saw the tremendous amount of love and care and compassion that he had doing a job that from our sensibility today, we would say that's not a good job, but he did it to the best level he could. So when we're working in the records, we always go looking for the light. We're not looking for our blocks. We're looking for where the light is. And when we discover the light and the transcendence of our human qualities, that changes the energy that we've been carrying over time. It's really beautiful and such a positive way to create change. All right, now here's I'm going to say, here's where we kind of get a little more serious. All right, so one of the things it's really important to understand, I think, about the Akashic Records is it is not predictive. It's not a predictive field because we have this beautiful experience in this dimension that we love and we hate, and it's called free will. We have free will. And because we have free will, there is nothing absolutely set in cement that has to happen, that we must do it. It just doesn't happen. So the Akashic Records isn't the kind of place. Jeanette, I haven't gone into how to access the records yet. You're fine. You're good. Thanks for the question. Well, I'm going to guide you all through it in just a few minutes. Okay, so you're in good shape. Okay. So when we talk about asking questions in the records, which is what we do, you're not going to get what you want to get by saying, should I take this job? Am I going to marry this person? When am I going to die? I've heard all these questions, okay? I don't know when you're going to die. It's one of those funny little things that we don't know. Nobody, I mean, you know, I've heard people say that they know when people are going to die, and at least 100% of people I know that have heard that somebody they know or they're going to die, 100% of people I know that that's happened to, it's never happened that way. So anyway, we're here to live life. We're here to live our life, and there's certain little mysteries to it also. But the idea in the Akashic Records is, it's if you want somebody else to tell you what to do, when to do it, if you should say yes, if you should say no to something, what it's doing is in a sense taking away your personal authority and your ability to choose and your ability to tap into your inner core. And working in the Akashic Records is absolutely about you cultivating what's inside of you and having a deep relationship with that. But I did say earlier on that in the Akashic Records, it's past, it's present, and it's future possibility. So let's talk about what that is. Now, most of my life, since I was 10 or 11, I've been on a spiritual journey. I grew up in a non-religious family. I mean, we were vaguely Christian in that we celebrated Christmas and Easter, but there was no religious training growing up. But when I was 10 or 11, I started taking myself to the local church by myself. I walked there myself and got involved in the church myself. Okay. So my whole life has been about really resolving some very uncomfortable, I don't know if any of you can relate to this. Life hasn't felt comfortable for me in a lot of ways. So I've been always trying to find the next way to feel comfortable, to overcome some of the things I had happen in my early childhood. And so I've been on this journey. So the reason I'm bringing this up is when we look at future possibility, it's based on the trajectory you're going. It's likely these things are going to be happening. Because I can say, well, you know what, my whole life I've kind of been on a spiritual journey. I'm really deeply into personal transformation, working on myself, supporting others, and doing that. This is what my whole life has been about. Now, so it's highly likely I'm going to continue that. I'm 61, right? I'm probably going to keep going with that. It's worked so far. But what if tomorrow I have the freedom, if I wanted to say, forget all this and I'm going to become a gardener, or I'm going to see what it's like to become a cross-country truck driver. Okay? I have the freedom to do that, don't I? Now, is it likely I'm going to do that? Probably not. But, well, I can guarantee you not. But I do have in the world of free will, which is what this dimension has in it, I could do that. So if I'm in this spiritual trajectory and I hear, well, it's likely you're going to do this, it's based on that flow of my energy, that the way it's existing right now. If I change and I do something else, I can't say, oh, it was wrong. I made a different choice. And so it's creating a different future possibility for me. So that's why we don't get into predictive questions in the Akashic Records. We're wanting to cultivate our inner knowingness and our inner awareness where we have authority over our life. So we don't look for when is this going to happen? How's it going to happen? Now, we can always massage questions to get us in the right direction, but never to tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, if it's going to happen. All right. All right. So I've talked about free will. All right. So going into this idea of there's a lot more happening in the Akashic Records than just information. We want to have that energetic shift that creates a new experience, a new relationship for us, energetic foundation to create a new relationship with life itself. So what's really transforming us when we work in the records, and I mentioned this earlier, is the energy. So when we go in the records and we're asking a question and we're exploring anything, the energy is transforming. The information is secondary to it. So I've had experiences in my own records where I've gone in and I've asked a question. I might not always feel that satisfied in that moment. But what's not satisfied is my cognitive awareness. But going in there and doing anything, my energy has shifted and changed. Now, let's say, for example, I have a challenged relationship with a distant family member, and I'm going in and I'm wanting to have a better understanding of it in my Akashic Records. If I'm not going to see that distant family member till Thanksgiving, I may not have any feedback system yet to know if I've shifted and changed, right? So I can go in there and I can do the work, my energy can shift, and sometimes we need to be in the world to get the feedback from the world for us to see the realization, the manifestation of the energetic change. Does that make sense? So the information is helpful, but I want you to get it that the energy is transforming just by you being in there, asking your questions and going on your explorations in there. All right, this is going to be the last, I think the last, no, I've got 2 more things to tell you. How many of you love the question, just tell me what I need to know? Few of you are thumbs upping. Okay. It seems like such an outstanding question, right? Because you've left it wide open to receive whatever's there. Because if I ask a question about this, maybe there's something really important here I'm not going to get, right? You know, so we ask these really broad-based questions. But bear with me as I explain to you why that is working in the records. There may be, like I have a friend who goes for a lot of psychic readings, and he says, that's always my first question, just tell me what I need to know, okay? So there may be places where that is like your most optimal question. You're not going to get very satisfied in the records that way, honestly, because let's just think for a moment about the Akashic Records being that database or that library. We'll stick to the library, okay? Because we're all old enough, we know what libraries are like. So I want you to imagine going to the library, if you could, in California. You can't go to libraries, but let's pretend you can. You open up the door, you stand in the doorway, and you say, can you please just tell me what I need to know? What do I need to know right now? Tell me. Okay. So what's going to happen? The librarian's going to come, or the security guard, or wherever, you know, they're going to come over and they're going to say, shh. Right? They're going to tell you can't yell in the library. And the next question is going to be, what is it that you need? What can I help you with? Right? And the next thing you're going to say is, I'm trying to fix my lawnmower and I have no idea how to do it. And we're going to pretend Google's down, right? And I need a book on how to fix a lawnmower. So the librarian says, great. And they usher you to the place in the library where those references are. And let's just pretend, then they say, now we're in the section where we get to repair machinery. What kind of lawnmower do you have? Oh, look, here's the volume, here's what you need. It happened by specificity, not generality. Does that make sense? That's how you do amazing work in the records, by saying, you know what, tell me what I need to know, but what I really want to know is why I can't forgive my sister for doing that thing to me when I was 7 years old. That's really what you want to know. So let's do that. And then when you get into a better place with whatever it is, you feel more confident, you feel more tapped in, your intuition is expanding, because the side effect of working in the Akashic Records is your intuition grows. All right, so as you're working in the records and you're having more experiences and you're releasing things, you come to learn that what is it about my life right now that I really want to know and understand. You go in there, you get what you need to get, you go out, you feel transformed, then you go in again, right? But it's very relevant to what you want to know right now, what's up for you right now. Okay? Okay, I'm going to say this. I get asked a lot of funny questions. I do. I've had people say to me things like, is he thinking about me right now? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. It's not going to be available in your records. I'm sorry. Okay? When you open up your Akashic Records, it's all about you. It's not about them. You can ask about the other people, but we're at your soul's information, your soul, your growth, your transformation, your journey. So working in the Akashic Records is one of the places that you get to be profoundly selfish and self-centered. It is all about you transforming yourself. And then you show up for yourself in the world in a much better way. And so I know I'm being silly about like, is he thinking about me now? But the idea is, when we're in the records, we're not going to ask about other people. We're going to ask about ourselves. And if we have other people in our life, we still center our questions on ourselves. Like, why did he break up with me? Why did he cheat on me? Listen, these are legitimate human questions, right? These are real. But what we want to do, since we're in the record, your records, or whoever's record who's asking that question, it's like, the question really is, how do I get comfortable in a really uncomfortable circumstance, right? That's where the juice is for you. Because I don't know why. I'm not going to know. As a reader, I don't know why they did what they did, because we're in your soul's records and we can't open theirs. We can't. It's permission based. If they're not there saying, yes, please open my records, and we've opened their records, we don't get to do that. Okay? So now one last thing, and then I'm going to introduce you to the way we're going to open up the records and have our experience. And if we need to, I'll ask everyone in a moment if you want to just take a quick bio break before we actually do that. But let me just tell you this one last thing. There are people who've asked me, can we just go into my records and erase them? Or rewrite them. I want to change it. Okay? And I understand why people are asking that. Here's the foundation of why they're asking it. They know that whether it's earlier in this lifetime or some other time and place, like past life, something happened, and they feel like if they can go in and erase it, then they're going to be different now. Here's the reality of what really is going on here energetically. 99% of the time, it's not what happened. That's the story part of it, right? Those are the details of what happened. Like, I was an executioner. That's the story of it. It's not what happened, it's how we felt about it. The beliefs we created about ourselves, about the world, that is what we want to change. So going in and erasing our records and rewriting them, we don't do that. What we do is we go in and we look at it through the lens of the unconditional love, through the lens of the freedom of judgment, through the lens of looking for where the light is in the situation, and allowing that to change the energy that was taken on at that time. That's where the transformation happens, not by going in and erasing the story. It's how we felt about it. I'm going to just give you one example of, and I have permission to tell the story, just so you know. And I mash up stories anyway, even, you know, I change gender or whatever. So there's somebody who I've done a number of readings for, and they had a fairly significant, long-standing issue with relationship. And I'm trying to abbreviate the story here in my head. What happened as we went into the records for them is we actually ended up in utero in this lifetime when they were still gestating in their mother's womb. And what happened was, they were fine in the womb, but the relationship between the parents, the way the father was treating the mother, this person in utero took it on as, I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy of a loving relationship. They weren't involved in it. It was the way the father was treating the mother. So we can't go back and erase that experience, but we can work with the beliefs that came up as a result of that experience and change that. And that person, because I know them well, I watched them change for an entire year after that reading. It was very profound. So we didn't need to go in and erase the story. there was nothing wrong with them incarnating and being in the womb at that time. The problem was the belief system that they took on as a result of the situation they were on. We went in, looked at it, understood what was going on, and began to work with the little in utero person, and that created some freedom for them. It was a process, but it was a big experience. But again, so when we frame it through the light and the love of the Akasha, the light and the love that everything that's always happening, we're doing the best we could in the moment. We want to discover what that is. Because even in some really challenging human experiences, we can live very courageously or lovingly or forgivingly. And we want to look at the qualities that we've cultivated because of those. How many of you can think of a challenging experience in this lifetime that because of that experience, you actually became a better person? Anyone can relate to that? Like my back was up against a wall. And I had to do something different than what I was doing. And so that is the resiliency of the light in you. That's it. You've lived it already in this lifetime. You say, wow, that was hard from a human perspective. But what it did was broke me open to something new and something better that I hadn't cultivated, I hadn't connected with yet, I hadn't sourced in myself yet, and I did. And I was transcendent and I became more. We've done that over and over and over again. So celebrate your light, everyone, right now. Like, woo, look at me. I cultivated that. I mean, this is heroic stuff, and that's what we want to discover in the records. All right. And all right. So I have a question here from Ashley. Can health questions be asked? For example, if there are family genetics for, say, diabetes, heart disease, whatever, can one ask if the energetic frequency can be released in oneself? Yeah. Okay. So at the most basic level, Ashley, yes, you can ask anything in the records. Like anything is free game in the records. But what we do tend to do is, so the medical stuff is a little bit slippery. I'm going to be honest with you. But like for me, people say, can I ask about it? It's like, let's ask, let's see what we get. Some of it, you know, when it comes to lineage, and you hear, okay, heart disease or diabetes, you may hear that there's a genetic component to it. You might hear that. So then the question is, if I have a genetic component around it, what can I do to support myself the best as possible, right? These health questions go in all kinds of places, and it's sometimes even to like a psycho-emotional work you can do. Sometimes it does go back to past lives. Health questions aren't always exactly about the body. So yes, you can ask health questions. And then beyond that, you just go with what's supposed to be coming through. The question of can the energetic frequency be released in oneself? That's a great question that if you're in the records, you'd have to just ask if it can just be simply released, or what's the best way to change it? Is it possible to change it, or optimally live with it? I mean, it goes in a million different directions, and I've seen health things go in all kinds of directions. Yeah, so there's never just one answer, but listen, if we're human, you can ask about anything in the records. There's nothing that's not fair game in the records, because it's all about our awakening. Okay, so yes, you can ask questions about sex. Some people say, well, I don't think I should ask that. Sure, it's human. It's no different than the jobs we do or different than any other human aspect of ourselves. So we can ask whatever we want. And you know what? I've worked in the records enough that there is no like A plus B equals C. If somebody's going to ask about this, this is what the response is going to be. It's so unique and individual because we are, right? We are. And the way we're navigating what's there is very unique to us also. All right. So can you either give me a thumbs up or clap your hand or raise your hand if I can see you? How many of you would like to take like just a 5-10 minute bio break before I explain to you how to open the records? Okay. So is that okay, Doug? I didn't ask.
Absolutely. No,
Okay.
I think it'd be fantastic. Yeah. So I've got 7:40 or 48 past the hour. Why don't we reconvene at 53 past the hour, 7 minutes too? That'll give us 5 minutes.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
This is great. I think I can speak on behalf of everybody. This is fantastic. A lot of really good stuff here.
Thank you. Thank you. I love this. It's so exciting because we all get to live into our next potential.
Awesome.
That's what we're here for, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So we'll meet back in 5.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And beautiful. And we'll throw it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So after all that I've talked about so far, and thank you all for listening so patiently, I'm going to introduce, well, I've already mentioned this, but I want to start with this again. There are many ways to access the Akashic Records. And from my perspective, there's no one way that's better or worse. All you need to do is find a way that you feel comfortable and works with you. You know, I personally don't subscribe to the ego of one way or another. It's not my job to tell anyone what's better or worse. If it works, do it. you know. I've had people say, well, I don't really need to take a class because, or I don't really need to learn a prayer because I already know how to do it. It's awesome. Fantastic. And in the world of the sacred prayers, which started popping on the scene in the 80s and 90s, find what works for you. I was talking to a client yesterday, and she uses like 3 or 4 different ways to access the Akashic Records. She sort of like she loves to learn different ways to access the records. So you just find what works for you. Back in 2011, I was introduced to, actually, let me get my book. I was introduced to this this book called, get this name, How to Read the Akashic Records. That's the name of the book. It's that simple. But this book is written by Dr. Linda Howe, and Howe for people who are interested in knowing that. And it's called How to Read the Akashic Records, and this literally tells you how to read it. You can see I have lots of sticky tabs in there. If I do the pages, you see all my different highlights. So in 2011, I was introduced to this, and it has been the most significant way I've accessed the Akashic Records. Yeah, as I said, I'm in my 10th year of actively working in the records. And this is a method I'm going to show you today and introduce you to. It's called the Pathway Prayer Process. And again, Linda Howe brought it through. And I have been a teacher of her work since, I'm in my 8th year, I think it is, of teaching her work. And I've actually done a ton of work in Alberta, even though I live in California. I've been going up to Alberta, into Edmonton, Calgary, Canmore, teaching since, I don't know, 2013, I guess, maybe 14. So it's a very effective method, and it's one that, while I've explored other ones, it's one that I can tell you with certainty, because I've taught it to many, many hundreds of people. When I talked before about a prayer being a bridge, it's taking us from our ordinary everyday human consciousness, the way we process our world through in our 3D/4D experience, into, it's really changing us dimensionally into the dimension of the Akasha, where you're outside of time and space, into that place of your soul's history. So what's great about all the prayers or invocations is that they create that space that we can count on. Like, I want to go in my records today. I know if I read this, I'm going to be in that space. Okay, so that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to put it up on the screen in a moment for you. I'll share the screen, but I want to just explain a little bit about the prayer. Well, actually, I'll put it up now and then talk about it. Oh, so would you be able to do the screen sharing again for me, please?
I will try my hardest.
I have full faith in you, Doug.
Select your window or application you want to share a screen.
What you want to do is not do that. What you're going to want to do is go to my name under participants.
Yeah.
Is that where you were?
And hit the dots. And what if I just make you the host, and you'll have complete control?
Okay, that would work as well too.
There you go.
Let's see, I just lost the screen. Okay, there we go. All right, thank you. I think we have it. Okay. All right. So now let me see if it will let me do it. Yes, it will. This is awesome. Okay, so here we go. And here's a copy of the Pathway Prayer Process. Hopefully you can read it. Now, this is the way, I'm going to describe to you the way we read this. If you're opening the records for yourself, it's read slightly differently if you're opening the records for somebody else, but it's a little too much for us to do all that in one evening. So if you notice that some of it's written in blue, it might look purple on your screen, and some of it's written in orange. Hopefully everyone can read that. In the blue parts, we read that out loud, and the orange parts, we read silently. So I just want to kind of break this down quickly before we actually go into the records. So I'm going to go down here, and hopefully you can see my little cursor. It says masters, teachers, and loved ones. And I want to explain the masters, teachers, and loved ones to you just briefly. We won't go on a deep dive here, but just so you understand. I mean, I call these this is your spirit team that's specific to the Akashic Records. You might have spirit guides you work with, angels, ascended masters, all of that really wonderful, yummy. I have all those too, but specific to your Akashic Records are your masters, teachers, and loved ones. I call them the specialists of your soul's journey, your soul's awakening. And the reason I say that, like, if, for example, you had a broken bone, you're not going to go to the dermatologist to have your dermatologist help you with your orthopedic needs, right? So you're going to go to the person that's the right kind of doctor for the problem that you have. So these are your specialty team for your records. So quick explanation so you know who they are. Your masters. Your masters are non-physical, they're light beings. They have never been embodied. They started to journey with you the moment you separated from source, and will be there with you every moment, every second, every step of the way until you are completely unified with source again. I think about my masters as like, there's nobody that knows me better than they do. They know me better than I do. I'm trying to discover what they know about me. Now, the teachers, they might be well, first of all, they're all energy, they're all light. Some of the teachers may never have been embodied, like the masters. Some of them may have been embodied, but they're not now. Teachers are there for the specific lessons that we're learning right now. So these are like high-level lessons, like compassion, humility, patience, self-love. Okay, these aren't lessons like how to ride your bike. These are these high-level soul lessons. So your teachers you have lesson-specific teachers. So whatever your lessons are that you're learning in this lifetime, you have teachers for those. When you master them, they leave and other teachers come in. So masters are always with you. Teachers are a changing cast of characters. Now, maybe I'm learning right now the lesson of self-love in this lifetime. I don't know if I'm going to master it in this lifetime. So however long it takes, whether it's, 6 months or 60 lifetimes, those teachers are going to hang in there with me till I've mastered it completely. Now, loved ones. Loved ones are exactly how they sound. We have known them one way or another in this current lifetime. They're non-physical now, so they've transitioned. They could be family members like parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. They could be children who've gone before us. They could be brothers, sisters. They could be friends. They could be work colleagues. They don't have to be biologically related to us. Okay. It could also be, guess what? Those really beloved pets could be on your team of loved ones also. Okay. Now, not everyone who's gone before you will be on your team of loved ones. Your loved ones are comprised of the team of those who've gone before you who said, I want to help them on their soul's journey. So they're there by their choice, their capacity, obviously, at our soul level to do that. So again, it's not everyone who's gone before you. Now, the Akashic Records is not mediumship. So even though you know you have some loved ones on your team, they're not here to do mediumship readings with you. My suggestion always is, if you want to talk to them, find a really awesome medium. That's about going to the right specialist, right? You want to go to a great medium if you want to really have a conversation with your loved ones who've transitioned. Okay, that's the exact right place. Again, when you're in your records, the focus is on you. So you're not going to get a list of your masters, teachers, and loved ones, because they're an energetic group that come together with their full focus on you. Okay, sometimes we don't always like that, but that's the reality of what it is. So so I want you to know that when you're reading about masters, teachers, and loved ones, who are these guys? Okay, so I also want to bring to light here. In the here is wait, why can't I find it? Okay, there we go. Hello. In this third stanza, it says Lords of the Records, and we see it 3 times. Let's talk about who the Lords of the Records are. The Lords of the Records are non-physical beings, and their job is to take care of the sanctity of the Akashic Records, the Akashic field. So they never directly interact with us. So we interact with our masters, teachers, and loved ones. Our masters, teachers, and loved ones interact with the Akasha and the Lords of the Records. They're there in the space, but they're not talking to us. They're busy taking care of the Akasha, all right? So when we open the records, we're going to use your current legal name. So I want to talk about this. And so again, it's what you're currently using as your legal name. Because I'm looking at the screen share and not seeing everyone's, the full screen of everyone, I'm just going to bring this up. If you go by a spiritual name, but you've never legally changed your name, you have to use your legal name, even if you've gone by the spiritual name for 20 years, okay? However, you're legally identified, tax records, that kind of thing, that's what you're going to use here. Now, so I'm just going to scan through. If anyone has a question, you can ask, because we're going to dive into this in just a second, because we're going to read this together. And let's just talk a little bit about the structure of the prayer. There's an opening prayer and a closing prayer. So anytime we open the records, we also want to make sure we close them. Do not go about your life in your records. You are in an altered field, an altered dimension. So you go in, do your work, and then you get out. And then go about your life, because that's where your soul has you, having this experience in this dimension, right? So this very first stanza here, and so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. This really sets the stage for like the safety, security, and sanctity of the work we're going to do. I've had people ask me, how do I know if I'm opening up to this dimension, if I'm going to be safe and secure? This stanza really is ensuring that for us. Second stanza, O Holy Spirit of God, protect me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. I like to explain the term self-centeredness because it sounds funny. You know, if I said to any one of you that you were being self-centered, you would just feel insulted by me, wouldn't you? That would not feel like a nice thing for me to say. So the idea in this case, when we're talking about it relative to going into being protected from self-centeredness, going into the records, is this. This is what self-centeredness looks like. I don't know if I'm going to be good enough at this. What if I don't get anything? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not going to hear what my masters, teachers, and loved ones have to say. Oh, somebody else who's here, I know they're really good at these things. So any way we feel insecure, that's what we wanted. That's what this stanza is doing. Let's protect ourselves from those like human insecurities that make us feel less than, and direct my attention to the work at hand, which is going into the records, okay? Now, this stanza here helped me to know myself in the light of the Akashic Records. When it's in blue, and then the next 2 times are in orange, it's the same wording, except when we say have it in blue, we have myself and me. When you're going to read it silently to yourself, this is where you're going to insert your current legal name. And then at the end of it, you put him or her or however you identify. Okay? And so then when you get through all of this, you're going to say the records are now open out loud. Okay? So now, not everyone has the same length name. We're going to start reading this together. And we're going to read all this together till we get to the bottom of this first blue section. And then it's going to be quiet. And you're going to read this silently to yourself. And again, people read at different rates. People have different length names. So if your name is John Doe and somebody else has 5 names, they're going to take a little longer than you. So when you say the records are now open, I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes and settle in. When I get a sense that everyone else has opened their records completely, I'm going to start guiding you in this experience, okay? I'm going to guide you in this experience. And Doug, I'm going to just ask, because I have a feeling people are trying to copy this prayer down right now. Is it okay if I send you a copy of this, Doug, later, and then you can send it out to everyone so people don't have to worry about writing it all down right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll send it out on an email. Thanks.
Okay, great. I'll send it to you after we're done. So everyone will get a copy of what this looks like, okay? So then you know you have it right. You don't have to worry about writing it down now, okay? So again, once we're in there, I'm going to guide you, and I want you to be very patient and very kind with yourself. For some of you, it's going to be the first time you're breaking into this space. If you think I'm going to hear like the voice of God, you know, more likely if you hear anything, it's going to sound like you because you're in your records. All right. And most of us, the majority of us have a felt like an inner knowingness more than a sound or a scene when we're in the records. So I'm going to guide you through this experience, and then we're all going to close the records together. I'm going to invite you to open your eyes back up, and then we're going to read this out loud. It's all in blue. We're going to read it from top to bottom together. And then whatever time we have left, we'll have for Q&A. All right? So, are we ready to rock and roll here, folks? You ready to do this? Okay. So let's begin reading the prayer together. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. O Holy Spirit of God, protect me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know myself in the light of the Akashic Records, to see myself through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of me have for me. Now continue reading it silently 2 times, inserting your current legal name. The records are now open. So if you've finished reading the prayer, close your eyes down, please. Just eliminates all the visual input. from the world around you. And what we always want to do when we open into the records is allow ourselves to arrive. So begin with your eyes closed to just notice what you're feeling, what you're sensing. The Akasha is a field of unconditional love. It's not an idea, it's a reality. And what comes with unconditional love is acceptance, understanding, compassion, freedom from judgment. So some of you may be experiencing that love, or that almost like you put a heavy backpack down, or you can take a deep breath. And if you're not feeling a lot, it's okay. You're still immersed in this space. We want to just open up to what this Akashic atmosphere really is. And as you're in this space, just open up. Again, you may feel physical sensations. Some of you might feel like you're seeing things behind your closed eyes. Some of you might feel like you're hearing something in your ear. And most of you will just have some awareness that something slightly different. And as we acclimate to the Akashic atmosphere, let's imagine that our neck can turn in 360 degrees and just take a look around, so to speak. Feel what you feel and notice the energetic surroundings you find yourself in. Notice if you're holding your breath, and if you are, just relax your abdomen and keep breathing. And what we want to do is bring our awareness to the reality that in this space with us right now are our masters, teachers, and loved ones. They're always there. They're never on a lunch break or busy doing anything else. They're always there. So as you scan your surroundings and get a sense of it energetically, notice where you feel like they are. Perhaps you feel them right in front of you, or on one side or the other, maybe behind you. Sometimes people feel them completely encircling them. Sometimes people feel like they're all hovering above their head. Just notice. And if you say, I think I'm imagining where they are, allow that to be true. And from this place, since we're just breaking into the space of the Akasha, and you've noticed where your masters, teachers, and loved ones are, literally feel like you're connecting with them. You know, they know you're there. They already know you quite well. And open up to the idea that you're the one getting to know them, so that you can really consciously and intentionally begin cultivating a relationship with them. And while we're in this space, one of the things that's really fun to do is, in this moment, ask your masters, teachers, and loved ones for one thought, feeling, idea, or suggestion that would be really beneficial for you just for today. Open up to the receiving of anything. Maybe it's an idea that you've already had. Maybe it's something that you're already working on and they give you a little suggestion around it. We don't need to go too far. We just want to say, what can I do today in this moment? And one of the things that you're learning here is also to trust that something or anything might be happening there. And even if in this moment you say, I don't think I'm receiving anything, and energetically you're in this space, you cannot be in this space without receiving something. And also you asked a question, which by definition means you will be receiving something. You may not have cognitively understood it yet, but you definitely have received a response. For some of you, you may want to jot something down and find that that is a very easy way for you to receive information, by putting a pen to paper. If you feel like you haven't received anything, or you'd like to understand more, talk to them about it. Say, tell me more. Or help me understand it in a slightly different way. And just notice what you receive back. Tell them that you're learning how to receive their messages and their communication. So once again, notice how you're feeling in this space as we're just breaking into it, just opening up this space for your experience. Feel the connection with your masters, teachers, and loved ones, your specialty team in the records. And we'll let this experience be for now. So if you'll take a nice breath in for yourself and open your eyes to look at the screen again. And we'll read the closing prayer together. I would like to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the Lords of the Akashic Records for their point of view. And I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. So take a nice breath in and feel yourself grounding. It's always good to ground like with a glass of water, or if you have some tea or coffee or something with you. Grounding after you get out of the records is important to just feel, you know, here I am, I'm back in my human body. And in our human bodies, we take a drink of water, we might go walk the dog, move some laundry. We get back to our normal everyday human things, and that's grounding for us. So I'd love to open up the to any questions you have or any sharing. Like, what was your experience? We just touched into it, and I'd love to hear what your experiences were, if you'd like to share.
I'll volunteer a little bit of my experience there. I definitely felt a different pressure, like almost like my ears were, I was just in a different pressure area. I walked into this great big humongous hall, and it was pitch black, but with like strips of like silver light, almost like there was curtains with that were open just a little bit with some light drawing through. And also too, I felt like I was being enveloped in like a warm blanket. And then there was no human forms, like even myself, I wasn't a human form, but it's kind of like a spool of light, again, silver. And then there was other, likewise, other energy spools around me.
And were those your masters, teachers, and loved ones?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's really cool when people see that. As you've heard, you know, I've opened the records thousands of times. I can't even tell you how many times I've opened the records. I just want to tell you this, so some of you are going to feel better about this. Do you know what I see when I go on my record? I've never seen anything cool like that. Never. I see gray. So if you saw gray or you feel like you didn't see anything, don't worry. I promise you, you can work in the records, because that's all I ever see is I have a sense of things, but I've never seen cool stuff like Doug was talking about. And, you know, so it's always right for our experience, right? So wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And did you don't need to share this if you don't want to, but did you feel like you got some response when you said, you know, what's something I could do, or, you know, a thought or an affirmation, something that, you know, like a positive intent for yourself? Did you receive something?
Yeah, actually, when you had mentioned that, I had put that forth, and I certainly did. Yeah, I got a positive response for sure.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it.
Holly, this is something that's available to us at all times. Like, we can go into our Akashic Records by reciting the opening prayer, and
whenever you want.
Fantastic.
Yeah, whenever you want. You can go in, do the work, close your records, get out. That's what I love about it, you know. And that's what all the prayers do for us, right? Again, this is one way, but there are tons of ways. But what they're allowing us is this conscious, intentional pathway that we can count on. Like, I know I want to go in there. So I want something I can count on. And that's what these do for us.
Right.
Yeah. And so Helen says, I saw pictures, whoops, and got to know why my relationship with money is not good. Wow, that's interesting. So now, what I should do to clean that negative energy? Well, so that's a big question, Helen. So part of it is, you can ask your masters, teachers, and loved ones to understand not just why, but where it began. Because wherever it began was really good. It made sense in that time, space, dimension, reality. It made sense. So ask to be taken there and to understand it from that point of view, and that begins resolving the energy of it. And so Ashley says, like Doug, the pressure changed in my ears, and I found myself in a stunning white marble structure filled with light. God, you guys are cool. Like, I've never seen that. And gorgeous depictions of paintings of a very sacred nature. My guides and masters surrounded me and made sure I felt they had my back for the visit. How beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Ashley. Elda said the pressure in my ears had changed and I felt warm. Leanne said I felt nothing. Really, it's okay, Leanne, that you felt nothing, because it does, if you read the prayer the way it was, and you didn't change all the words, and you didn't say my name's Minnie Mouse when that's not your name, you were in there. And I can tell you that with 100% certainty. If you read it the way it is and you use your right name, you are in there. The more you go in, the more refined your sensibility will be about receiving information, and you'll get there. Okay. So Leanne, after she said she felt nothing, I see 2 smiley faces. Hopefully that means she feels okay with that. And she said, okay. All right. So yeah, don't despair if you say you felt nothing, because here's the other thing. When we go in the records and our energy gets shifted, sometimes we're consciously aware of it and sometimes we're not in the moment. But I've had times where I've closed my records and I go about my day and I go, oh my gosh, and dots connect. And it's the result of the energetic work I did in my records. And that was when it made sense later, sometimes afterwards. I've had clients write to me and say, okay, I had that reading with you, and just today, everything made sense. And that they might say, and that was 2 weeks ago. Because other things are happening in our outside world to show us the evidence of where the change is. Sometimes we're not bumping into it yet for us to see how we've changed. So, does anyone else have anything? Okay, so may I ask how to practice every day? You mentioned that practice is important. What should we do? Well, I'm going to send a copy of the Pathway Prayer to Doug, and he'll send it out to everyone on the email list, or however that gets distributed. And then you can just go in the records, start doing that. You could get this book by Linda Howe, because this book that says how to read the Akashic Records, it literally tells you everything. Okay. The other thing is that I do offer sessions to people, one-on-one sessions. And I also, aside from teaching 4 different levels of courses within this work, I've actually created some online programs that are very specific, topically specific. And I'll just talk about them very briefly, and then I'll tell you my website, and you can look at them in more detail, or write me an email, and I can share more with you. But there's one in there that's actually, it's called Love the Energy of Money. You know, a lot of us have money issues. Anyone relate to that? Mm-hmm. Like, we got kind of a, like, we don't have enough, or we have it and then we don't have it, or like, oh my goodness, all the things. So I was, all the programs I've created, I've been asked to create in my records, by my work in my records. So I created a program on how to shift your relationship to the energy of money. That's one of them. It's like 4 or 5 modules, and you can do all of it online. And then I meet with people regularly so they can ask questions. I didn't go into this, but not only do you have records, but your home, your business, your pets have records too. So it's really cool. I created a program on how to work with your business in the Akashic Records. So to really accelerate it. So if you're a solopreneur, or if you get permission from other people, if you're a business owner, you can open up the records and really start working with the energy of your business. Because even if you say, well, my business is me, you birthed something. And so you can use the Akashic Records of your business to really create some incredible forward movement and growth if that's what you desire. In addition to that, I created another program. So our core wound that we all have is self-abandonment. It's like, you know, all those layers we're peeling back. What's at the center of all of it is something that we refer to as self-abandonment. It reflects a lot into inner child work. And Linda Howe refers to it as the king of all of our sacred wounds. So all the wounds that we're trying to heal, the core of all of it is the way we've abandoned ourselves in some of our challenging moments. So I intentionally went after self-abandonment for a couple years. I worked really hard in my records to upend self-abandonment in my life. And then as a result of that, my master's teachers and loved ones said, you need to create a course. So I created a course on us working in the Akashic Records to go to that center nugget, to lovingly work with ending self-abandonment. So I have that program as well. There are a couple more in there. I'm going to put up the link to our website. So do you say your business name in the opening prayer? Yeah, you would say your business name. And I'll just put in my website here. I should say because I'm in business with my husband. We do this together. soulgenesis.com is our business. And my email, if you want to write to me. Is this okay, Doug, that I put this in here?
Absolutely. And we will also have this information on our website and in the email as well. Yeah. By all means, go ahead.
Yeah, and there's a way also that you have to get on my calendar to do this, but I do, if you have questions about any of this, and like you say, oh, I really want to do some of this and I really don't even know where to start, I have a 30-minute complimentary session where we can just chat, and you can tell me what's up, and I can tell you what recommendations I would have for you based on the work we do. So that's always available as well. And yes, you can practice it any time of the day. Should we meditate first before reading this prayer? You can, if you want. There's something called the Pillar of Light meditation that Linda Howe has written out in this book, if you want. The key before going in the records is I just sort of breathe and I center, bring my energy to myself, and then I read the prayer. But if you want to meditate first or anything like that, you can. Whatever makes you feel comfortable and centered is what's important. So I don't want to take up any more time. I know we're a little bit over, but you know, I had such a fun time. I hope you've enjoyed connecting with the Akashic Records. It is such a great pathway for the transformation that we're all desiring to have right now, where we can, you know, I believe that we can live and actually have fun while we're here in 3D. We don't only need to escape. We can bring our light into our human experiences, let it shine, and we really can live what we dream about. That's my Piscean nature that you hear speaking there. But I believe it's possible. And it's my story and I'm sticking to it. And that's what I love. That's why I love all the work that we do, that it helps us live into the highest potential of who we are. Holly, so thank you so much, Doug, and to Calgary Dowsers.
If you don't mind, I'm not exactly sure how to ask it, but is there any danger or like by going into your Akashic records and asking questions, and I'm sort of referring back to the one about family health history and that, is there any danger of it becoming like a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like say, for instance, you know, my family is generations of being an alcoholic. And then this is front and center in your day-to-day mind, and you know, okay, I'm up against it, I'm going to be an alcoholic, for instance. Is there any danger or anything like that?
Well, if I'm understanding your question correctly, no. I mean, because you know, and alcoholism is a slippery slope, isn't it? It's interesting because there's the whole like, where's the genetic and where's the
Sure.
conditioned, and you know, there's all that. And I can say that because I grew up with alcoholism in my family, so I'm aware of alcoholism. But when you know, when we think about this, we're lining up with our core truth, which is our soul, and our soul's connected to source. So as we're in there and as we're trying to discover the truth of these things for ourselves, and it always gets framed in the records from a positive point of view, not to be Pollyanna-ish, but because the reality is we're always doing the best we can. Wouldn't you agree with that? Wouldn't everyone agree? Even in moments where you really maybe blew it, weren't you still doing the best you could in that moment? And if you could have done it differently, you would have, right? So when we start working in the records, we always go looking for the light, and that those transcendent human qualities, they are always discoverable. They are always discoverable. And that's what transforms our relationship with it. So I haven't ever found anything to create more of a problem. I'm not aware of that. I mean, I guess there's some people who might have said, oh, my life really went downhill after I worked in the records. I haven't ever had that experience. And I've never heard, none of my students or clients have ever said that. So I don't know. But I think the more we line up with our truth, that core level truth, then we understand the human condition differently, because that's the sticky wicket there, right? We've got our human experience. It's messy, let's be honest, right? It's messy. We've got good stuff, we got some terrible stuff. We have things that are really awesome pinnacle moments, and we've got stuff that we wish never happened. And so this is the polarity. I mean, this gets into this whole thing that we came down here in this polarity dimension for the beauty of what polarity brings to us, because polarity helps us grow. As much as we hate it, it's in those dirty little moments that we really have to bring more resource to the table and find more of our strength, our compassion, our love, our tenacity, all of that. So what we're trying to resolve, really working the records, is human experience with our soul level truth. It's a paradox that we live within, right? Mm-hmm. Like we know we have this knowingness about how glorious we really are, and yet we've got this messy little human experience. And so when we work in the records, we're helping resolve that. And I view it as, I'm not going to hold my humanity against me. And even in my messy moments, guess what? My light's still there. There's nothing that has ever happened that's going to dim my light. And we live into confidence with that. There's nothing you've ever done or that's ever happened to you. It's just, I want to hug everyone. I love you all so much. There's nothing you've ever done that has dimmed your light. Nothing. Your light's still there. So that's what we want to discover, right? We want to live from that place and really feel like that we're amazing, and we deserve to feel amazing. Yes. And that's what happens as we look, you know, this goes into some of what I teach, but in the curriculums I teach, but you know, if we looked at our perfection of our divine blueprint, it'd be like this glorious like sphere made of these beautiful grid of light, right? In its perfection. But what happens in our human experience? We get bent and twisted, and we might have some frayed wires, right? So we go in the records, like, and our little beautiful blueprint might look a little messy, right? But we go in the records and we get a little straightened down, we get a little more aligned, and we go in and we keep working. We get a little bit more and more and more closely aligned with this potential of who we are. And we stop holding these things against ourselves.
Yeah, I love how you say, I love how you say, I'm not holding my humanity against me. That's just perfect. And also,
don't we though? I mean, we're so mean to ourselves. And I'm really not nice to myself, right? I mean, we've all heard the cliche saying, like, if we talked to other people the way we talk to ourselves in our head, we wouldn't ever have any friends, right?
Exactly. But when you're in the records and you're dealing with the truth, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's nothing but beauty, when you're dealing with truth. So you can't go wrong.
And that's what we want to start, just slowly, cozying up to that vibration, more than only relating to the imperfect human experience. The human experience is going to be a little messy because of polarity, because of duality. But also for me, what happens, because I've worked in the records, I also, when I have my more challenged human moments, because I have them, I am not immune to them. I channel ascended beings and all this stuff. I'm still very human. I go to the grocery store as a muggle, just like everyone else, right? But when we are working in the records, when some of those more challenged moments happen, well, I found that I realize there's another side to them. I don't take it quite as hard. I know there's a way through it. I know I'm going to be better on the other side. And so I kind of pull myself up by the bootstraps and say, okay, so where's the opening here? How do I find the gemstone in the middle of this? Because I know it's there. And so you just start living into that deep inner faith in your light, even if messy things happen, because they will. Mm-hmm. They will. And that's not meant to be a downer. It's just like, let's be realistic about a polarity dimension.
Right.
Let's not expect more of the dimension than what's here. But we ourselves can interface with the dimension differently. I could talk all night. I guess you could probably tell that. I get really excited.
I think we could listen all night. This is fantastic. If there's no further questions or comments.
Yeah, and thank you all for your comments of thanks. You're so welcome, and it's such a pleasure. It's my passion to share this. And somebody asked, oh no, it was actually, okay. I do go up to Alberta, as I mentioned. My next trip up there is tentatively in October, but I got to cross the border. So I don't know what's going to happen. But if you're connected, you'll find out when I'm next teaching things in person. And I will we're very involved with Japan. We're doing a lot of teaching in Japan of not just Akashic Records, but other work that we do. And we're really involved with that until mid-October. So probably in November, I'll be offering an online, like, basic class again. Just can't do it between now and then because we're busy with Japan.
And just judging from all the comments that I've seen, Holly, this has just been just a magnificent, fantastic session. Thank you so very much for your time and your knowledge.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's just been wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, and for everybody to have stayed you know, as long as we all have, that's a testimony in itself. So that's fantastic. I just have a couple of little things to wrap up before we all go. And again, if anybody has anything else to say, just go ahead and type it in while I'm going over this.
Doug, before you do that, because I don't want to, I think because I'm host, the second recording might go on my computer. So do you want to take back the host?
Sure.
And then you have all of it. Not that I couldn't send it to you, but you might need to do that to have it on your machine.
Right. You might have to do that. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, let me see if I can.
Pass it over to me.
Oh yeah, I have to give it to you. I'm sorry. Okay, there you go.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah. It's like the hot potato.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, thank you so much, Holly. I really, we all really appreciate it. It was wonderful. Again, yeah, this is recorded. It'll be on the website. So all the information that was here will be available. Calvin's away, but as soon as he gets back and he can put it up on the website, it'll be there pretty quick. Also, too, if anybody has any feedback as to today's presentation, the Zoom meeting, anything at all, anything that can enhance the experience, anything to add, anything that's there that might not want to be there, kind of thing, any comments at all, we totally welcome it, because we want to make this as good as possible and to reach as many people as possible. So your input is encouraged and valued. So and you can do that by sending an email to the website, and we can get it that way, and we'd very much appreciate that. Thank you. Again, our next meeting will be Wednesday, August 12th, I believe. And again, that will be in person, cross our fingers, but in person. As of today, it is in person at the Inglewood Community Center. And I think that's just about a wrap, actually. Again, I would just like to say thank you so very much, Holly. Honest to God, this was just a beautiful presentation, just fantastic. Thank you. And I guess with that, we'll conclude the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. And hope to see you in person in August. Take care. Have a great evening. Bye, all.
Thank you very much. Appreciated. That was great.